There is a particular kind of restlessness that has nothing to do with the big questions of life and everything to do with the pile of mail on the counter, the coat draped over the chair, the drawer that no longer closes. Gretchen Rubin built her career studying happiness, and in Outer Order, Inner Calm, she turns her attention to a truth most of us feel but rarely examine, that the state of the space around us shapes the state of the mind within us. This is a summary of that book, a guided walk through its ideas, told in plain language, so you can carry its insights into your own home and your own life. Rubin is the author of The Happiness Project and The Four Tendencies, and she writes as someone who has tested every idea on herself first. Outer Order, Inner Calm is not a manual for cleaning a house. It is a short, warm, practical book about how getting control of your stuff helps you feel more in control of your life, and how that, in turn, makes room for something deeper than tidiness. The book moves through 5 clear stages, and this summary follows that same path, beginning with the question of why any of this matters at all. What follows is Rubin's argument, taught in her order, idea by idea. By the end, you'll understand not just what she recommends, but why she believes a cleared shelf can change how you see yourself. Introduction. Why bother with Outer Order? Rubin opens with a confession that doubles as her thesis. For most of us, she says, Outer Order contributes to inner calm, more than it probably should. A messy desk or a crowded closet is, in the grand scheme, a trivial problem, and yet clearing it produces a wildly disproportionate lift in energy and cheer. She recounts a friend who told her, after finally cleaning out her fridge, that she now knew she could switch careers. It sounds absurd, and Rubin admits it. But she knew exactly what the friend meant. Getting the small thing under control unlocked a sense of agency over the large thing. The heart of the introduction is what Rubin calls the 9 promises of Outer Order. Order saves time, money, space, energy, and patience. It fosters peace within relationships because you stop nagging and stop hunting for the passport. It creates a feeling of sanctuary, a place of comfort rather than a source of stress. It reduces guilt about unused possessions and unfinished projects. It lets you project a truer identity to yourself and others. It relieves the fear of being judged, so you can welcome a guest without panic. It reflects what is happening now in your life rather than what happened years ago. It creates a sense of possibility instead of paralysis. And it sharpens your sense of purpose. You know what you have, why you have it, and where it belongs. But Rubin plants an equally important flag here, one that separates her from nearly every other voice in the decluttering world. There is no single right way. We differ in what we value, in the surroundings that please us, in the habits that come naturally. We should pursue Outer Order only if it makes us happier. There is no virtue in an empty inbox for its own sake. For some people, what looks like disorder works just fine. This humility runs through the entire book and is what makes it trustworthy. She is not selling a template, she is handing you a set of tools and trusting you to know your own life. What emerges quietly is that this is finally a book about attention, about clearing away the trivial so the soul has room to rest on what actually matters. And that question of choosing well leads directly into the first stage. Chapter 1. Make choices. The first stage is the hardest, and Rubin is honest about why. Clearing clutter is exhausting, not because of the physical labor, but because it forces a long series of taxing decisions about what to keep, what to release, and why. She lists the rationalizations we all use. This might be useful someday. This was a gift. This reminds me of someone I love. I'll use it once I lose 30 pounds and form a band. Naming them is half the cure. Once you see the story you're telling yourself, the object loses some of its grip. At the center of this stage sit what Rubin calls the 3 big questions of clutter. For any possession, ask, do I need it? Do I love it? Do I use it? If the answer to all 3 is no, you can almost certainly let it go. And for anything that survives the test, ask one more question. Where does it belong? Every item should have a specific home. From this flows one of her sharpest small rules. Never label anything miscellaneous, because a miscellaneous file is a place things go to be forgotten forever. Rubin fills this stage with practical wisdom that respects how people actually feel. She urges you to identify your beneficiaries before you start. The organization that takes books, the family that needs children's furniture. Because it is far easier to release something when you can picture someone else being glad to have it. She warns about mementos, arguing that fewer, carefully chosen keepsakes actually preserve more memory than a mountain of them. Since the mountain overwhelms. Keep one sweater instead of 5, keep your grandfather's pipe instead of his whole desk. She names the easy-to-buy, hard-to-use trap, the cookbooks and exercise equipment that promise a better self but deliver only guilt. And crucially, she tells you not to aim for minimalism. Outer order, she repeats, is not about having less or having more. It is about wanting what you have. The goal is a settled relationship with your possessions, whatever their number. What this stage teaches underneath the tactics is the discipline of choosing. And a person who can choose freely among their things is practicing a small version of the freedom that matters everywhere else. Chapter 2. Create order. Once the choices are made and the excess is gone, the second stage begins, actually putting things in order. Rubin finds this deeply satisfying, and she explains why with an idea borrowed from criminology. The broken windows theory holds that visible signs of small disorder invite larger disorder. Whatever its merits at the level of a city, Rubin argues it is plainly true at the level of a life. An unmade bed, a pile of unsorted mail, a counter buried in clutter. These personal broken windows quietly give us permission to let everything slide. Fixing them, even the trivial ones, restores a felt sense of control. She introduces the idea of clutter magnets, those specific surfaces in every home that attract mess. The dining table, the chair in the bedroom, the hallway chest. Because clutter attracts clutter, she makes a nightly effort to clear these spots before the mounds can grow. She offers a guiding principle for storage. Think about accessibility, not just storage, because if you can't retrieve something, you won't use it. And if you don't care whether you can reach it, that's a clue you may not need it at all. She has a fix for the eternal search problem. Put a hook by the door for the keys, buy a bag of pens and salt them through every drawer, end the daily hunt with a small structural solution. And she delivers a gentle but serious warning about waiting, citing research that after age 50, the likelihood of divesting possessions drops with each passing decade. Do it now, she says, because waiting makes it harder, not easier. And the burden you don't clear becomes a burden someone else must carry. Order in her hands is not sterility. It is the quiet competence of a space that works. Chapter 3. Know Yourself and Others. Here the book turns inward, and this is where Rubin's particular genius shows. Because there is no single right way, the only way to find your way is to understand your own nature. She offers several frameworks for self-knowledge. Are you a marathoner who prefers slow and steady work, or a sprinter who thrives in bursts against a deadline? Are you an overbuyer, hemmed in by too much stuff, or an underbuyer, stressed by lacking what you need, and aware that underbuyers generate their own peculiar clutter through worn-out, making-do possessions? The richest framework comes from her own earlier work, The 4 Tendencies. Every person responds to expectations in one of 4 ways. The upholder readily meets both outer expectations and the inner ones they set for themselves. The questioner meets an expectation only once convinced it makes sense. The obliger meets outer expectations but struggles with purely inner ones, and therefore needs outer accountability to follow through. The rebel resists all expectations and acts only from a sense of freedom and choice. Rubin tailors her clutter advice to each. Give the questioner the reasons. Give the obliger a friend to answer to. Remind the rebel that a clear space is something they get to choose. The lesson is that strategy must fit the person. And just as you study yourself, she urges you to study the people you live with. Because a household runs more peacefully when we stop demanding that others share our exact sense of order. This chapter is the book's moral center. It insists that you are a particular kind of person with a real nature, not a problem to be standardized, and that knowing that nature is the beginning of arranging a life that genuinely fits. Chapter 4. Cultivate Helpful Habits. Having made choices, created order, and understood yourself, the 4th stage asks how to keep the clutter from creeping back. Rubin's answer is habits, small, quick, automatic behaviors that manage possessions before they accumulate. Her governing maxim is that it is far easier to keep up than to catch up. The work of order, done in tiny daily increments, never becomes the overwhelming project we dread. She offers concrete habits anyone can adopt. The 1-minute rule: if a task takes less than a minute, hanging a coat, tossing a piece of junk mail, closing the medicine cabinet, do it without delay, and a startling amount of clutter simply never forms. The habit of taking one thing with you whenever you move between rooms. Nudging stray objects closer to where they belong, so that little by little the house resets itself. The discipline of putting things away rather than putting them down, since I'll deal with it later, is the sentence that builds every pile. The weekly power hour, a single dedicated hour to handle the nagging tasks that don't fit anywhere else. These habits work precisely because they are too small to resist. Once formed, Rubin notes, they run on their own, freeing the mind entirely. Think about clutter now, she says, so you can forget about clutter later. And the deeper promise is that good habits quietly hand your attention back to you to spend on things that matter more than your stuff. Chapter 5. Add Beauty. The final stage is the one most decluttering books forget. It is not enough to remove what is unwanted. We must also actively add what delights. Rubin recognizes that human beings have paradoxical desires for their surroundings. We want both abundance and spaciousness, both a quiet retreat and a place for hospitality. The aim of this last stage is to make a space we want to live in, not merely one we have cleaned. She suggests choosing a signature color, a particular shade of slate or chartreuse or aquamarine that becomes yours and lifts your spirits each time you see it. Or a signature pattern or material if color isn't your thing. She returns to the principle of making the work fun, invoking Mary Poppins and the spoonful of sugar. Race the clock, play your favorite music, turn the chore into a game so it gets done. And she insists, finally, on reveling in the order once it exists, pausing to actually enjoy the cleared desk, the easy mornings, the space you made. Beauty, in her telling, is not decoration laid over a tidy room. It is the recognition that our surroundings feed our senses, and that pleasing the senses genuinely raises the spirit. To add beauty is to treat your daily environment as worthy of care, which is to say, to treat the small, ordinary span of your life as something worth making lovely. Conclusion: the fulfillment of inner calm. Rubin closes by asking the question underneath the whole book: why does outer order contribute to inner calm? Her answer draws on her larger model of happiness, that a happy life means feeling good, avoiding feeling bad, feeling right, and living in an atmosphere of growth. Outer order serves all four. It helps us feel good through rest and spaciousness, helps us stop feeling bad by relieving guilt and irritation, helps us feel right by keeping our time and attention on what matters most, and creates growth through visible improvement in our surroundings. Then she reaches for something more mysterious. The link between outer order and inner calm, she suggests, runs deeper than utility. Our possessions are not us, and yet, in a real sense, they are us. We extend ourselves into the things around us, fashioning our surroundings as snails build their shells, making a mark upon the world. When we look at our stuff, we see a reflection of ourselves, and we are happier when that reflection shows things we need, use, and love. There is a virtuous cycle here. Outer order fosters inner calm, and inner calm makes outer order easier still. When the coat goes on its hook easily, it becomes easier to go to the gym, easier to write the hard email. Change fosters change. The cleared space is not the goal, but the doorway. A small, achievable act of ordering that ripples outward into a steadier, freer way of being. And in that stillness, finally, there is room to attend to what the clutter was crowding out all along. Outer order, inner calm, is brief enough to read in a sitting and generous enough to return to for years. Its great virtue is its humility. Rubin never pretends her way is the only way, and that honesty is exactly what makes her advice land. If anything in this summary struck a chord, the full book is worth your time. It is full of small, specific, immediately usable ideas, and reading it tends to make you want to stand up and clear a single drawer right now. That impulse is the whole point. Begin wherever you are, and as Rubin promises, wherever you are, you're in the right place to begin.